Hello there. Welcome to our latest Bristol Life Business Surgery on this infinitely hot day. We can't complain, can we? It's in conjunction with Interaction and Varn, and we'll be talking to both companies shortly. I'm Greg, and thank you for joining us this morning. Today's session is designed to cover creating workplaces to attract talent where people actually want to go, where people are actively stimulated to do their best. We'll be speaking with our all-star panel with Interaction's Head of Research and Strategy, Deborah Wilder, and designer, Lucy Symons. And by the way, we'll be asking Lucy to talk through her design rationale. And I think that will be absolutely fascinating. And of course, also Varn's Managing Director, Tom Vaughton. Varn is a search engine specialist, a search agency specialist. We're covering all manner of topics, from workplace design to bold new design projects, from existing realities to making workplaces, as I say, somewhere where teams actually want to go. It's quite a battle for employers that we've all become sort of inured to working from home. And it's how, in the autumn, less so this summer, how we get people back into workplaces. Because on the one hand, many say that's what they want, that's what many businesses want. But at the margin, an awful lot of people don't yet wish to go back to their workplaces. And that balance between desire and wish and opportunity and need is something that we're all playing out in our different businesses, those who are able to work from home, of course. And yeah, that interrelatedness of workplace, of design, of culture, of teams, of business benefit, this should be a really, really stimulating session. Please do send your questions and thoughts using the Q&A button below. You can ask anonymously if you like, or be named, it's up to you, but do add your company name if possible. The surgery is being recorded and be on our Bristol Life YouTube channel later this afternoon. A few updates from us. We actually have got a busy time, and summer notwithstanding, look out for our next Bristol Life Business Surgery next Wednesday, July 28th, with Burgess Salmon. It'll focus on how to develop, protect, and commercialize your technology, data, and IP. And Burgess Salmon were one of the sponsors and great speakers at our recent EntreConf event for entrepreneurs. Google EntreConf, you'll see the presentation they did there. But please do join us next week, Wednesday 28th. What else we got? Further out on August the 10th, we have Anne Hyatt, again another speaker at EntreConf. Anne is just a remarkable person with a stellar career, a former chief of staff at Google, had a senior role at Amazon in its formative days as well, working very closely with Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos, in those rapid growth days of the early noughties. Anne spoke recently, as I say, at EntreConf, and you can check her speech there. But what she will be doing this time around is talking about how her own career, how she personally responded to that dot-com crash of the early noughties. And rather than it being a setback, it became an extraordinary opportunity. Some parallels for students and young people embarking on their careers right now. The pandemic, there's many baleful aspects of it, but Anne will be arguing there are opportunities, and this is a great, we think, inspirational way to encourage Bristol, but also Bath-based students and young people into thinking about their careers differently. We'll be running further Bristol Life Business Surgeries, these specially curated deep dive sessions showcasing companies' expertise through discussion. Please do talk to us about how you might be involved. They will continue as virtual in the future, and they'll have that enduring value via the Bristol Life YouTube channel. Bristol Life Awards news, well, we do have some news on that, which is that tickets are now on sale for the 2021 Bristol Life Awards. Initially, they are for finalists only, and that's for a short period of time. And then we'll go out onto an open sale. It'll be just a much wishful, stellar occasion on 16th of September. So not that far away now at Ashton Gate. And we're really looking forward to bringing everyone together again and just celebrating the city. God, we bloody well need it, don't we? Remember, these are the postponed from April awards, and we'll be reverting to the spring again in 2022. So if you're an ambitious company, or one seeking to rebuild your business pipeline, just proud to be plain proud to be a leading Bristol company, please do talk to us about sponsoring. Spring of next year will be coming around sooner than we all think. Also coming around yet sooner than that, and relevant very much to this audience, the Bristol Property Awards. Tickets and tables are now on sale for those, back in real life, 12th November at Ashton Gate. A huge amount of marketing and planning and all that good stuff, culminating at lunchtime at an afternoon event. A huge gathering of property and pro services companies. Nominations are open right now, and they run through into September, so there's time, but please do get your nominations in before we close. Free to enter on the site, nominate your company in any categories as usual, checking our top tips and so on. Just have a quick look at these sponsors. They include winner sponsor, Allied Hire Services, category sponsors, AWW, Bevan Britain, Blaze Commercial Finance, Bristol Life, Walsall Construction, JES Building Services, Marsh Commercial, MDA Consulting, Missiato Design and Build, Original Style, Planning Portal, Redland Core by Juniper Homes, Shawbrook Bank, Spaces, Vickery Holman, Wilmot Dixon and YTL Developments, and a variety of feature sponsors, Clark Bond, Flagship Consulting, Triangle Networks, and a couple of partners, Oak North Bank and So Works by First Base. You can see from that, there's a huge array of companies already involved, and there's actually, frankly, it sounds odd, but a limited number of tickets available even now. So for anyone involved in Bristol property in any way, such as our speakers today from Interaction, it's going to be a very special occasion, and look out for those partner tables. Bristol Life, at the heart of all of this is Bristol Life, our magazine that we're so proud to publish, celebrating the very best of this incredible city that's responded extraordinarily well in this pandemic and looks set fair as everything has been opening up in recent weeks to have a strong second half of this year and into a really strong 2022. We're here to celebrate the good stuff in Bristol, and thank you for your support. Right, let's do this thing. Let's bring forward our speakers, if we may. It's about office stimulation and how design interacts with business values and so on. So it's with Interaction and also search marketing company Varn. I'll give you a couple of bios of our three speakers. So Tom Vaughton, MD of Varn, started Varn in 2010 after building many years of experience in the search marketing field. Check his blog on the Varn site covering different SEO areas, including holistic search strategy and latest thinking. Outside of work, he enjoys playing a part in the local Bradford-on-Avon community, where it looks as though he's sitting right now, but that's just a trick, a digital trick. But we'll talk about that and of course, the values behind the offering very shortly. Deborah Wilder, Head of Research and Strategy at Interaction, heads up that workplace research and strategy, trained as a research health psychologist, and after a few years in academia, slightly frustrated perhaps by the slow pace, and spurred on by her love of interior design, Deborah pivoted, a very de jour word, pivoted to workplace psychology and design. And also Lucy Symons, a midway designer at Interaction, a first class degree in 3D design, spatial and interior design with an obsession for dogs and progressive interiors, presumably in that order. Focus on immersive design and multi-sensorial spaces. And as we'll hear, Lucy tackles site-specific briefs to create one-off designs, and we'll be going through that as mentioned, which will be good. Let's start with Interaction. So Deborah and Lucy, welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, we're good, thank you. In a nice, cool office.
a nice, cool office, cool in both climatic and design terms, no doubt. There we go. So Deborah, perhaps tell us this about, for those who may not know Interaction, creating inspirational workspaces through understanding strategy and aims. What does that mean in practice?
If we take ourselves back to the 90s, when design and build, workplace design and build was first came about, we used to design somewhere and then we used to build it. It was actually quite simple. But then about 10 or so years ago, we started thinking about what people would actually need in the workplace. We treat people as individuals, teams as individuals, businesses as individuals. So we engage with the people first, and that enables us to create truly bespoke workplaces rather than a one-size-fits-all.
And what sort of clients have you been working with of late, particularly?
Our workplace portfolio remains really diverse. So we are working with some legal firms, quite big national legal firms. We are working with social housing, some quite big sort of over many different counties, social housing organisations. We're working with lots of creative businesses. We work with tech businesses, really any kind of business that has an office or workplace, you name it. But we also work on top of that with, and it's not just those traditional workplaces, because we work with engineering firms that also have workshops attached to it as well. And going forward, we might be working more with logistics firms, creating those sort of back offices and recreational spaces and team spaces too.
Pretty diverse. And we're going to be talking about one specific project in a moment with Tom and also with you, Lucy, as well. But I guess underpinning all of this is the belief that good design aids business. So that'll be percolating through this conversation this morning. Lucy, we will come to your work and thinking specifically on the Varn project. But perhaps if you could set the scene as a sort of standback point. Does your design and your design thinking lead the client, or do you follow the brief?
It's a bit of both. So we pride ourselves on doing a lot of evidence-based design. So Deb's team work really hard to make sure that we have all the evidence to back up the design that we're doing. So we know that what we're putting in place is for the best of the client. We'll take the brief. So when we met Tom, for example, we did meet on site in the woods, and we went through everything that he needed and his team needed, and each of those individuals, and then we kind of worked out, as a tech business, there's normally a base of things that people need, where they want to be, how, you know, down to the T point, what facilities they're going to need there, and we call that our shopping list. So we'll have our shopping list of things that people can pick and choose, and then really a lot of the initial stage is probably led by the client brief, and then we use our expertise to kind of bring it back and say what we think is going to be best for that space.
So we do challenge clients. We challenge them quite a lot, I think, which sometimes, you know, puts us and them out of their comfort zone. But we do often say, "Are you sure you want that? Do you really think that's going to work?" You know, and often from a sustainability point of view, you know, we say, "Do you really want to get rid of that? Can't we reuse that?" So we do quite a lot of challenging as well, don't we?
Well, we'll come on to how challenging that, how challenging in a good way it's been for you in a sec. But just one more for Lucy. Are creative companies like Varn more enjoyable to work with, or you know, are all clients good?
Everyone's completely different. We all have in-house the design team. Everybody's probably got projects that they've worked quite a lot more on. So I've done a lot more like tech companies. So working with a team like Varn's really kind of up my street. I know what they're after, know what they need. So across the team, we cover all the bases. All clients are enjoyable.
Yeah, some more enjoyable than others. That's very Orwellian lurking in there. Let's bring in Tom Vaughton of Varn in his garden, as I say. Morning, Tom.
Morning.
So for those who less well know Varn, tell us a little bit about what you do, perhaps also why you do it, and maybe touch on some of your clients and sectors.
Yeah, we're an SEO agency, so essentially helping clients' websites to perform better in search, and that's either through audits or ongoing strategies. Why do we do it? I think we do it because we're quite competitive people, but also quite techie. So I think we just sort of like that balance of, this is, you know, Google's a zero-sum game. There's only so many spaces, so it's quite easy to benchmark yourself. The areas we focus on, actually, generally, there's three main areas really: sort of growing e-commerce sites. We do quite a lot with healthcare and publishing, and with and they're the sort of three main areas.
Yeah, and how's business been for you?
Yeah, in all honesty, we were fortunate that we weren't particularly exposed to clients that have been absolutely hammered by COVID, quite honestly. So pharma, obviously, been quite busy. Publishing was rocky, but has been quite resilient. And e-commerce, obviously, well, I think we all know what's happened there. So, but that was more good fortune than amazing strategy. Other great agencies I know have had it harder just because of the industries they were in.
Let's come into today's discussion. So set the scene in terms of the size of the company, perhaps in March 2020, where it is and how big it's intended to build. Then we'll come on to the workspace itself.
Yeah, so at the moment there's 10 of us, and we're on a bit of a growth trajectory. We're sort of aiming to double in size over the next couple of years, and that's sort of what led, well, that and COVID led to the whole thought about office space. So we're based in Bradford-on-Avon, so it's how do you attract, engage the current talent and keep them, and attract new talent, but also the link to COVID is, you know, the well-being and how important that is, and that's what got us thinking about office space. and essentially a fortuitous meeting with Toby Brown from Interaction.
Good. The technology is, at least at this end, is slightly failing us at this point. But if you could describe what your workplace setup has been like to date. I mean, I guess in very recent times it's been very much working from home. But what was the office like when you had a more traditional office?
Yeah, I mean, it's an old brewery, so it's a multitude of rooms. We're relatively relaxed as an office environment. We've always done a thing where every 6 months, everyone changed where they sat, and we changed the office around to try and keep it fresh, which people were a bit resistant to begin with, but actually turned out everyone sort of enjoyed having a different aspect. And we're quite serious, but I think our own way we have fun, and that's different for everyone. So I think the woodland idea was an evolution of that. So we came to the woods a few times for team events, started doing a bit of work in the woods, you know, and it sort of evolved from that. So I think we're always trying to keep moving. And as you grow, you're always looking at office space and what that means. So I think it wasn't completely out of the blue.
So tell us this in terms of your sort of working assumptions, and they may well be, you know, modulating in as months go by. But your working assumptions about working from office, whatever that might mean, as opposed to working from hybrid, optional, planned. How structured?
That's a good it's a good question. I think part of the challenge for me has been thinking, what does office mean actually? And what I've been struck by is possibly myself and possibly a lot of business leaders are sort of lazy in defining what that means. And I think, so we're trying to take a bit of an active role in evolving what office means. And I think we'll have a hybrid model of some sort where it's, you know, I think the research does show people enjoy working at home when they can concentrate on a project, but then sometimes the team culture aspect is potentially harder. So it's sort of having the hybrid of the two. I think the idea, it's got to work well, and it is different for each company. So we're trying to involve the team in it, our team, and then work with professionals like Interaction to help us delve deeper and ask those slightly annoying questions that they alluded to earlier.
Just goodly challenging questions. Yeah. You've clearly at some point, you know, and maybe this is sort of a light bulb moment, or maybe it's just been evolving. At some point, you felt a strong need to have a completely fresh approach to the workplace. Tell us how that came about, and then talk about the brief that you gave to Interaction. Or alternatively, freeze.
Oh, sorry. You cut out there, Greg, sorry.
My apologies, it's quite possible it's at this end. I wanted to understand why and how you came to the decision to have an entirely fresh approach. So there we go. The entirely fresh approach to an office space, and also then what your brief was to the Interaction team.
Sorry, Greg, was that to me? Zoom just crashed on me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was. How and why you felt the need for a new approach, and what the brief was.
Well, so the need for a new approach is I knew Stuart is out of my comfort zone and my expertise. I think if I've learned one thing is you do get what you pay for. And I think we've been trying to look at the office as an investment, not a cost, essentially. I think that's the way we've got to look going forward. So that's where the chat came about.
And the actual brief, I mean, what was in your mind? Did you have a vision of what you wanted, or was it more of a direction you were traveling in? I
had a rough vision, and it is quite different. We're at a different place now. But the brief was more about well-being and getting outside and the benefits of that. But the key part was it's still got to be an office. We didn't want it to be on wooden blocks that you get splinters on, chairs that weren't professional, and you know what I mean. So it had to be a proper. You could work properly rather than you can't at your work, but at the same time you be in the woods.
So Deborah and Lucy, how did Interaction get under the skin of this brief, which yes has evolved and so on? And talk us about how your word earlier about challenging, in the sense of prompting, I guess, rather than being difficult. But tell us about that challenge process of how you sort of teased out what the offering might be.
Well, we went to site originally and walked around with Tom. We did the whole kind of circuit and talked to him about how he works there, because obviously over lockdown, that was your main thing, Tom, that you found out that you really liked working from outside. And obviously it's one of those things everybody would like to, but not everybody has access to those kind of spaces. So by providing it in the workplace, you're almost pushing people to go outside and all come together. And so we went around, full on walk around, talked about the journey, your day to day, how you're going to work. And then obviously Tom had an idea in his head. And then we brought our expertise to make that happen for the actual office. So the spaces are a mixture of those outdoor areas that were probably more the initial thoughts, like the simpler areas, and then actually making an office space that works so that you are as productive as you would be if you're in the office up the road.
Well, at this point, let's, if we may, let's bring in your designs and talk us through those. For the benefit of those who may not know, you'll know this in infinite detail. First of all, what are we looking at, and at what stage was this? And just talk us through your sort of design rationale here.
So we're in the concept stage, and we've kind of been going back and forth just to bottom out some of the brief details, and then from here we will go away and work out exactly how all those things come together, the finishes that we use, where we place them exactly, so we can get obviously all the things like power and water to them, everything we need to make it work as a proper office for Tom. So here we're looking at a bird's eye view. The two hexagons, we're looking at a modular space. Recently, Tom's posted about on LinkedIn having a camper van. He's called CamperVarn, so somewhere that could also be incorporated. And we've made sure that these elements are going to be modular, so they could be moved at a later date, or they could be added to as Tom's team grows. So at the moment, this kind of caters for about 20 people to work there at any given time, and there's just a lot of possibilities for that to grow.
Can I just understand more about that word modular? Is that they are essentially movable?
So they will be temporary structures. As temporary structures go, they'll be pretty set where they are. But the modular aspect means that so at the moment they've got, if you want to quickly go to the next slide, that's all right.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like a sliced off image, so you can see what's inside. So at the moment, what we've incorporated is one kind of central breakout space on the left, which we're going to keep it as simple as possible. It'll have a big table in there, and with all the units underneath that can be used for stand-up meetings, team lunches, bringing people together. You've got kind of like a hot desk bench behind that people can touch down for an hour or so to work from. But then also on the right-hand side, you've got not the more traditional office, but it's kind of got the home comforts of an office space. So you have the proper tables to sit at, cork walls, whiteboards, all the tech you need, any screens that it will function as an office space. So the modular aspect would be, do you want to have another one of these pods almost further into the woodland that can be used for meetings, or do you want to add another one at a later date so more people can work from them? So that's the modular aspect.
And as you touched on, I mean, so much of your work as a company is also, as well as aesthetic and design led and strategy led and so on, it's also very practical. It's not just water and electricity. It's what is the ambient temperature going to be like? What's it going to be like in winter as opposed to summer? How has that informed your thinking here? Because this is a very different project, I'd imagine, from the normal types of projects you get involved in, insofar as any of them are normal.
Yes, so the next phase is kind of to delve into that detail of exactly what materials we use. If you want to quickly just go back one slide,
yeah.
Just as an example of some of the design thinking, we're going to include on the top there, you can see almost like hexagon angled windows and the roofing that was used on there. So the angled windows, things like make sure the water runs off if it's raining, and we can use reclaimed timber from the site to create the roof. And we've talked about creating channels in that roof so that the water runs off it, so we can collect the rainwater. So that's the next sort of development of how this is going to completely function to make sure it's a really sustainable office. Tom's talked about solar panels, so again that's another part of the practicality. How are we going to electricity into this and make sure it all works? A lot of it will come in the next kind of phase.
We have a sustainability person within Interaction who has his own work stream, really, working with us and the designers to think about compostable toilets and, you know, drainage and even like how do we bring AV in and
Glamorous
yes, the glamorous aspects. So, you know, we're treating this just like any of our other projects in that we've got all those work streams. So we've got a sustainability work stream, we've got a workplace technology work stream, we've got a health and well-being work stream. So even though you might think, well, this is a really natural sort of well-being rich environment, we need to think still about, you know, we need to not take those things for granted, and we need to think about how they move in the space and how the light comes in and the temperature and things.
Okay, great. Let's come on. I think we've got another 2, maybe 3 slides to show. Let's come to those, and perhaps Lucy, talk us through what we're looking at each time.
So this is kind of just to give you the overall concept of what the space will look like before we go into the next one. So what we've got here is the kind of main space for this outdoor office, where you'll have a range of different areas that you'll try and get people to congregate in. So we're going to have areas to cook outside, and so this will be kind of like this with the finishes applied. On the right hand side, we're going to landscape in almost like a hidden kitchen. So on the inside, people, if they want a cup of tea, they'll have to walk outside and like boil that water themselves. So they've still got that really outside woodland element, and so that we can encourage people to get up and move around and, you know, cycle here and walk here. It's got a bit of a different commute. Even if people get the train into Bradford Avon, they can actually walk all the way along the canal to go to this office. So it's already got the location. And then this is just showing how that might look with all the finishes applied. So like I said, we're going to use some of the reclaimed timber that Tom's already got on site. We're going to look at how all of the doors can like open and close depending on the weather, and sides can come up to make sure it's all a really open space. And the idea is to kind of encourage people to use the outside areas as much as possible. And so we're putting some decked areas in, forcing people to go outside to make a cup of tea, just making sure people are using all of that space.
Well, variously, I have to say it looks, you know, completely wonderful, and wish you all the very best with it. I've got a couple other questions. Is there one more slide, or are we done on the design? Oh yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
And then if we quickly go to the next one, sorry. So this will just show you an example of that interior space, and looking at all the finishes that we use in here. So the worktop in here, for example, is a terrazzo that's made from wood offcuts, and we look at every single fabric that we put in and make sure that they're all, you know, like recycled fishing nets, and there's a more of a story to each piece that goes into this project, so that it lives up to that sustainable kind of lifestyle.
Just on that sustainable point, we will be announcing fairly shortly our own sustainability conference off the back of an integrated approach through our 4 magazines in Bristol, Bath, Cardiff and Exeter. That is to follow. It's quite clear that sustainability is a key aspect, key part of the thinking, if anything accelerated by the pandemic. And it's good, of course, to see that this is grounded here. One specific question: how much of this thinking and design approach might be relevant for more city-based, city centre-based workplaces, more traditional places? I mean, this looks idyllic, but it's not going to be in the middle of Bristol.
We've got a lot of clients, even in London now, who are making sure they're going for buildings that have got some outside space, even if it's only going to get used once every few weeks or once a month for events. They're putting that space in, whether it's outside, rooftop, or whether they're trying to bring some natural elements into the offices to kind of cater for that. So I think there's a bit more of a push on the choice of people's office locations.
Yeah, I mean, I think through the pandemic, outdoors became safe, didn't it? There was so much stuff we could socialise outdoors, but not indoors. And so I think that, like lots of things, it's accelerated businesses' interest in these outdoor spaces as well, which is really exciting. I mean, it's particularly exciting with the Woodland office, because in that we were, we're always being asked, regardless of whether an office has an outside space, we're always being asked to bring nature into the office, aren't we, with biophilia, with plants and things. But this one enabled us to bring the office into nature. So very exciting.
It's that interpenetration of the two. Tell us where the project is up to now and perhaps what the timescale to completion is. Come on, you knew I was going to ask that. We're all thinking, it looks great, but is it going to happen and when?
So at the moment, we're still in that concept phase, and we're going to go into the next stage with Tom to kind of work out all the final details and obviously get it all costed up and work out.
Yeah, we're currently costing it, aren't we? But by sharing it with others today, that really makes us, we're very excited about this, and that means that we're definitely taking it forward. Obviously, we need to iron out the costs and the final design. It would be great to have it done in a few months, but there's a lot of things to sort out. But watch this space for the opening party.
Well, if invited, we'll be there. How's that for assumptive? So, Tom, from your point of view, what's your working timescale? How are you and the team thinking about when you might be in?
Yeah, I mean, so I suppose for us, part of the reason for getting the CamperVarn was to allow people to start to do it already, to sort of work outside and sort of test that, so people get used to it. Because I think there's a thing where, although in theory it sounds great, you've got to make sure everyone's happy with it. Yeah. I think, like Deborah said, ideally it'd be great to get it all done this year, but it's that sort of we're just pushing forward. Meet regularly, look at what structures we can use. It'd be great to have it done in the summer. So we're just all pushing forward as speedily as possible. But I'm one of those people that, in my mind, it was much simpler than it is. And obviously, Lucy very much like, yeah, Tom, that makes sense, but you have to run power to that, and things like this. So we're getting there. So at the moment, we've just more done it on an ad hoc basis. So hopefully, later in the year, we'll be at a point, and your invite will be in the post at some time, Greg.
I suspect, Tom, that you, like many of us, sort of begin with the end.
Yeah.
How you get there is someone else.
Well, yeah. I'm like, how hard can it be? I mean, it turns out it's quite hard.
So how hands-on have you been in terms of the whole process about the design, the look, the feel, and so on?
Yeah. Well, what's great is, well, as Lucy said, we all came and walked around together and just bounced ideas around. And actually, the reason for the honeycomb shape is because there's some beehives on the edge of the woods, and it's sort of that evolved from that, and it's sort of linking into the nature there. So yeah, they certainly listened to everything I said, and then the bits that weren't completely harebrained are included, and the other ones, let's say, have been evolved to actually work. So yeah, it's part of, it's been great being part of the process actually. Hopefully I haven't been too disruptive with slightly random ideas, but I guess they're used to that.
All clients always. I want to, Deborah and Lucy, a related point to that. I'm sure you'd always prefer a hands-on client, but tell us about the challenges the other way around, where a client actually doesn't have a clear vision and offers that classic, I don't know what I want, but I'll know when I see it.
People always know what they don't want.
Okay.
That's why when we go through the brief process, we'll do like concepts, the ideas, we'll always present them, get the feedback. We could go through a few rounds of that just to find out what people don't like, and then you get more of a direction, and then we'll do the development, we'll do visuals, so we can go back and forth tweaking those, and it's just a longer process when somebody doesn't have a clear view. But then sometimes people think they know exactly what they want, and it turns out to be something completely different. Like Deb said, we challenge.
We do challenge. I think that a lot of the challenges come through look and feel. So it's a bit of a classic that we that when we're thinking about branding and how it's going to look, and bring in sort of the business's identity. Often they want us to use their brand colours. And brand colours really don't translate very well to interiors. So we often have challenges like that. So there might be, and we've all seen a lot of these, but we've seen a lot of big offices with the pillars painted lime green or something, because the company's logo is lime green.
Yeah.
And so we do some challenging with that, and maybe some back and forth. So we want to stay respectful to a company's identity, but we also want to create really welcoming, comfortable interiors as well,
that the staff feel comfortable in as well, because
Yes.
they know where they are when they come to work every day. So
Yeah.
it's less.
And in that challenge process and being respectful and so on, does it ever go further that as a result, a company's identity or visual identity changes, or at least is affected by the process?
I would say so. I mean, think about LV.
Yeah.
Lucy was the designer on a fantastic project. Maybe you'd like to tell us about it.
They're in Brunswick Square called LV. They are a femtech company, so they're like really forward thinking, really exciting. They had quite a kind of like set brand, but their space translates is very, very different to that 2D branding that you get given at the start, and they've created a space that's more embodies the like idea of the company and how they want people to feel when they buy their products and when they interact with their business, rather than it looking like the brand. So that's a nice example of how a space can still feel like a company without splashing their colours everywhere and branding it.
Yeah, it really embodies the behaviours and their identity and their ethos. So it's a lot more subtle than just picking some colours. And then LV is a brilliant example of a really truly bespoke workplace.
Yeah. So Tom, come to this point. I don't know how excuse me, how often clients might have come to your current place. Here, is this part of the value that clients will think somehow better about this cool company with this amazing space and so on? Is that part of your thinking, or are clients, just by the nature of your work, not directly relevant in terms of workplace?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. That wasn't our paramount thought, if I'm honest. That said, it's amazing how many clients do quite like popping into Bradford Avon for a meeting and then lunch or something. Because our office, the old brewery, is a nice, sort of vaulted ceiling, big windows thing, and people do quite like that. I know when we've done activities with clients and got all together, they've really enjoyed that. So I guess we'll do more of that in the woods. But I must admit, it was more about what's best for the staff and that sort of well-being. So I think if there's a bonus for clients, then that's a bonus, which would be great.
And tell us about the team. They obviously fully know all about this and so on. Is there and I don't want to get into your commercial relationship with because that's that's all good private stuff. But is there a danger that these amazing designs and really radical thinking and so on, it may actually not be something you could necessarily afford to do, but your teams are all thinking this is where we're going? Are you on? That's the issue. That's a great question. Again, that's definitely a risk, and that's what we're working out, because you always have these bright ideas. I mean, people have it with websites or businesses. I want to do this, and then when you look at it, you're like, what's the budget? And again, interaction been good though. When I've been saying, can we have a helipad over there or whatever, and they're like, I don't think your budget goes that far, Tom. So and I think that's part of work with someone who's experienced in that, because they it's like a good architect, they can design it within a budget. But I think there is a not wanting to over promise and under deliver element of it, which I'm aware of. Yes. It's a natural thing. I would knowing you, I know that it's sort of inherent in those in tech broadly tend to be very optimistic. Everything is always improvable, and the new worlds are out there, and we could, but actually you have to root it back in the reality of the actual business benefit. Talk to us about the business benefit, where, ultimately, you have your own personal values, like anyone running a business, your own ethos and desires to do things in the way that you wish to do it. But at the heart of this is an investment. Tell us how you would attempt to gain benefit and how you might track that benefit. Or is that just not on your radar in that way? Yeah,
well, tracking is an interesting point, actually. And that is something we, how do you monitor staff well-being? And I think that's all very relevant right now, actually. We don't do that through internal sort of meetings and things, but that's definitely a point. I think with regards to the investment, generally, great staff help a business grow, and I think they need a great environment to do that. And one thing, So that's what we're looking at as an investment. And I think one going forward has to look at as an office as an investment rather than just a cost where you just put people in with tables. You know, I've always been intrigued with Google and how much they spend in their offices on that front in London, you know, and how they've designed it. And they've clearly thought about it. They've obviously got money to burn, so it's slightly different. But, you know, for me, I've just been stopping and thinking, well, you know, that if you can have staff, if they can enjoy work more, you spend 70 on, you know, I think it's something like 70% of your awake hours at work, traveling to work, doing work. If people can enjoy that, they, you know, they can just generally enjoy themselves more. So I think for me, there's a point where there's a responsibility for leaders to take care of their staff as well, just at a fundamental level. But the flip side of that is you will have a better performing team. And I don't think that's got to be the reason for doing it, because then you're doing it back to front. It's a bit like, you know, whipping people to try and get them to run faster. It only works once. Whereas if you can get a team going and get a team dynamic, they will run faster.
Yeah, it's entirely possible to have two different strategies which allied together. On the one hand, it's, you know, look after people, on the other, have a better business. Well, yeah, they do interconnect. Yeah. It's Deborah and Lucy, talk about that point about how well-being, in perhaps the broader sense, is now becoming more prominent in terms of workplace ethos and thereby design and fit out.
Yeah. Well-being is such an interesting one, which, you know, even before the pandemic, you know, really big focus on it. But I think it's come into its own now as people have been working from home, and there's been so much more of a focus on the individual and what they need out of life. So I think that the pandemic and new ways of working, it's not just about work, it's actually about social change. People have been spending a lot more time with their families. You know, some people have missed the commute, but some people really haven't. And they're not thinking about work life on its own. They're thinking about their whole life. And therefore the focus on well-being is even greater than it was before. And also as they've been working from home, they've been in control of their own environment. Which is really crucial. Everybody's very sensitive to, you know, they like different things. Somebody likes music on, somebody doesn't. Somebody likes quiet, somebody doesn't. Somebody likes lots of daylight, somebody's not bothered. And we've been able to control all of those things. And then we come back to a shared workplace and we can't. And that's why building those workplaces where there's something for everyone that suits all individual preferences and work styles is more important than ever.
Yeah, and Tom, to what extent has any of your thinking been around this point, that all businesses wish their teams to be back together for at least some of the time? Really, how much of the time, that's a different issue. But that many teams, many workers actually have so, partly for the reasons that Deborah's just touched on, have so preferred or enjoyed working from home. They haven't got the commute. They can have their immediate personal environment, as Deborah's just described. So is part of your thinking to make this place so great, people will want to go there, the team will want to go there? So there is that business benefit as well. Yeah,
I think that's definitely part of it. I think, as you said, people are now aware, you are set up to now work at home a lot of the time, especially in our industry, which is, you know, tech, online based. And everyone's different with their personalities. As Deborah said, do they like music or not, and are they an outgoing person or an introvert, and that impacts. So yeah, definitely having a place where people want to come to, even if it's just we split between the two offices depending on the weather or whatever. I think that's a key factor in it, because I do believe for the culture part and to help support young staff as they grow and mature and they learn personally, and everyone's different on this, I appreciate, we need to do that face to face. And I think we are people who like to see face to face. It's not the same on video, but maybe we have to support that for being more intentional with our office space rather than just force it by saying, no, you're coming in.
Going the other way, clearly there are skeptics everywhere, whether it's lockdown or vaccines, or even those who don't believe that better workplace design benefits business. How do you, I mean, all of you, but perhaps particularly the interaction duo, how do you respond to those who say, oh, come off it, I just want a decent place in a decent area for a decent price for my team. I can't afford to splash out on fanciness.
don't think you'll get people to go there now that they know that it's optional, apart from, you know, some businesses which will still stick to office first. But they, you know, we talk to a lot of clients. We do in the strategy team. We do a lot of employee engagement. We do focus groups and workshops and things, and we listen to their pain points. We listen to what concerns them, and, you know, and there are some people who feel that they will resent making that journey to an office if it doesn't have the right tech there, if it doesn't have all the things that will support them, if it doesn't have somewhere to go and do a Teams call quietly, where, you know, you might be disturbed if you're in an open office. So it has become more important than ever. Businesses will struggle. And I think most businesses recognise that we need to, in order to really retain a culture, we do need to keep people together at least some of the time. Particularly, as Tom mentioned, for those the new starters, you know, people who are just coming out of university, who are then spending a year sitting at home by themselves. They're not really learning much. They talk about not wanting to bother people on Teams, you know, because there's chat going on all over the place, and they just can't bear to ask another question. You know, it's like shared knowledge, isn't it? So if you sit next to somebody, you can ask them the questions, or like you can listen to their conversations that might be relevant to you and like take things from that. So and people's networks. So I talked about the individual, and, you know, there's very much an individual focus, but people's networks have really shrunk. So they might have better working relationship with their immediate team members, but they're not really thinking beyond their team, or from the business's point of view in the same way. They're not networking. So if you come into the office and you see somebody else, you have a chat with them about something, you wouldn't have purposefully done that. And then you go, oh, okay, that's a good idea. Let's catch up on that. If you hadn't have seen them and just had that sort of, you know, that little chat about it, then, you know, we're not sharing ideas and creativity in the same way.
And so much of ideas development, as you've been talking about, happens sort of by osmosis or happenstance. Of course, some of it is structured and formal and learned, but much of it isn't.
Greg, can I just, on the sceptical thing, can I just quickly say, one thing I would say with the sceptical thing is I think it's looking at that cost versus investment. But if you look at your staff and it's not a great office and you just pay for it and just that's fine, I'd suggest also therefore looking at staff turnover and staff what they deliver, because you'll know from employing people, if you have someone who wants to go, probably the 6 months before they go, their productivity dips. Then when they go, you have to find someone to replace them, and it takes them 6 months to get back up to the level where you want them to be. And if you look at that business cost, if people are undermotivated or you're trying to onboard people, that's a real cost. And I think so you need to link the two together, like, you know, and I think there's an impact there. If you can reduce staff turnover, there's a real cost there just from a recruitment and that sort of thing.
So great office design is very helpful for retention. Can we come to one other point, which relates to that skeptic point, a variant, if you give the phrase. How about the view that this sort of stuff is all well and good for creatives and techs, not for more traditional office-based businesses?
Yeah, I mean, from us personally, Interaction have a professional opinion. I think we can't copy each other. You know, you've got to find what your culture is and how you deliver that. You know, you can't clearly, GlaxoSmithKline can't clearly even probably move to a Woodlands, except for part of their team. So I think there is that part. But I think, again, it's like, are you questioning what you do and are you being intentional? But Interaction, you probably have a more eloquent answer.
Well, no, that's a really good point. I just don't think that's the case, Greg, actually. I think that all of our clients are interested to a certain degree in the same thing. So they're really interested in well-being, and they are increasingly, and pretty much all of them, really interested in sustainability now. You know, everything, you know, we're widening our brief within the strategy and design teams for sustainability, and not just that, but for social value too. And actually, it's irrespective of which kind of industry or business. They are looking to make sure that their staff are supported and that business is doing the right thing, obviously to a lesser or greater degree. And I think just to add to the last point, we're in times of ridiculously high employment, and this, you know, people are able to choose where they work or who they work for. And it's not just the immediate environment, but it's that kind of culture. You know, are they bothered about people, or are they just going to bring them in and stick them at a desk where they don't have any nice breakout, where they can, you know, have a nice lunch, or they don't have an outside space? These are all things that are setting some businesses above others, because people aren't just choosing jobs on the basis of salary.
Yeah, values have been reset. Also, at a deeper level, personal values have as well. There's a couple of pieces of research about the propensity of people to completely change their career or their job. Now it's way higher than it's ever been, because people have this sort of existential seismic shift in our thinking. There's a piece about digital nomads, for example, which is closer to your territory, Tom, about people who can work from anywhere. Well, they do work from anywhere, because precisely as they can. I was hearing this morning about someone who runs an agency in this area who's is now living just outside Budapest because he wants to and because he can. So it goes. Let's talk more about this point about the role of the workplace in encouraging return this autumn in some form. Wherever we are, I think all businesses, for the reasons that have been expressed, and many teams would want to be in the office more. How does design and thoughtfulness about office environment actually inculcate that sense of enjoyment of working in that sort of environment?
The shift has changed a bit over lockdown, where instead of having somewhere that you come to work every day, it's more of a destination office. So now the reasons that you come into the office are slightly different. It's not necessarily, like you say, that you have to be here. It's that you want to be here, and there's spaces for you to collaborate, and you want to see your team, and you want to learn from someone. So that almost the design has slightly shifted to having more of those smaller spaces to cater for every kind of person, but also more like informal meeting and hot desks, and it's just a lot more agile than it was before, even though we've been pushing it for a long time. Yeah. It's kind of just completely changed how you design it and all of those spaces that you include.
Is that you didn't say this, and it's probably a bit crass, but it's almost your time has come, that so much of what interaction has been iterating and articulating over the years now is a really sweet spot for your business, because pretty much the consensus has moved to that sort of territory.
The only people I know that have said they don't miss the office at all are people that don't necessarily have offices worth missing. They don't have spaces to break out. They don't have spaces to collaborate or to take a phone call, a personal phone call. They have to leave the office and walk. So the only people I know that really haven't missed any aspect of the office is because their office doesn't fulfill their needs, and it's a shame that their home fulfills that more. That shouldn't be the case.
And there's some really good, very, very big research from Leesman, who are workplace indexers, you know, and they do lots of engagement, and that's exactly what they found, that if you don't have for people, and they've done a lot of work from home research as well as workplace research from tens of thousands of participants, and what they found is that if the workplace itself wasn't very good, then the number of days that people want to work in there are much lower, significantly lower than if they had a good workplace. So, you know, they're really missing out on a trick there. Average workplaces just won't suffice if you're a competitive business.
Won't suffice. I thought you were about to say won't survive. I thought that's but talking of radical, would you expect from Interaction's perspective to see more of these more radical approaches to workplaces, such as Tom's been articulating for Varn?
I mean, it's something that we've been pushing for a while. Yeah. And even with the outdoor spaces. So we were working with a client just before the pandemic where they had a fantastic outdoor space, and we were trying to encourage them to put some outdoor structures there so that they could extend the seasonal aspect of it. So you know, they might, even with a bit of sort of covered pergolas or whatever, then they could work out there in the autumn and in the spring as well. And sometimes we even have very mild winters. So these are all things that we've been pushing and trying to just get people to to really embrace the idea of varied workspaces, that desk farms, rows and rows of desks, are just no longer valid. For most businesses, there are some that, you know, they still just do need that, and it's very desk-based work. But for many people, they need to be able to move around a lot more, and they don't have to just cram every type of work into a desk.
And the mindset's changed. You don't have to have a meeting in a meeting room. You don't have to take a call in a small booth. I mean, Tom's in the woods, so.
I think one of the things is that people, it's a bit like if you live in you move into a house that maybe needed a bit of renovating, but, you know, you're busy and you don't get to renovate it. And you've lived there for a few years and you stop really noticing. You think, well, this is fine. And I think a lot of people, a lot of businesses are working in workplaces like that, and it's fine. But then you go to a new one. You know, we take clients to other, we haven't been able to do it during the pandemic, unfortunately, but we take them to jobs that we've just finished, and they're like, oh, okay, so it was okay how we were working, but this is an entirely different world here, and they don't really know until they've been in it and seen it. They're just used to how they've been working.
And I think that a lot of people have changed the spacing around their offices, so people want more open space in terms of like walkways, instead of trying to cram as much in as possible, like valuing that space, because everybody's obviously been apart for a whole year, and making sure that you've got bigger breakouts and like bigger areas for people to take themselves off and do those day-to-day tasks.
So we are delivering cost savings, quite big cost savings in many ways, because a lot of businesses with hybrid working, we were talking to a lot of businesses who said that we don't have enough space, so we need to double our space. And now they found that they don't need to do that. So they're saving on their budget, but they are also able to put in some of those things which really create that much better environment that still save money.
Yeah, I mean, if rather than necessarily doubling space, if you can halve the amount of hours in the office per person, broadly speaking, you've got the opportunity for better working environment as a result, provided you're willing to invest in it, which I know, quite a bit of interactions work has been precisely around that, about repurposing existing offices for benefit. Talking of benefit, Tom, from your point of view, how confident are you that Varn will benefit from this? If that awful thing, the crystal ball, wow, look forward a couple of years out and so on, you'd be looking at it and think, thank God we did that. Alternatively, well, it felt good, but I don't know. Where will you be?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think certainly a part of me, whatever we do in the office, which we've done before, if you're not failing somewhere, you're probably not trying. So I think there's got to be a part of, if you're comfortable the whole time, you're never going to find the next thing. So there's always a risk, and it might be it evolves, or maybe we use it, but mainly for client meetings, and clients come and share it, and they use it occasionally. But whenever we've chatted about in the office, people are well up for it and positive about it. So I think we won't know till we try. But I think that's why it's working with interaction rather than me just doing it myself, which probably would have been carnage, quite frankly.
Yeah, but you'd had your helipad.
Oh, yeah, which I can't use. But
just a sign on the ground with a cross, and as far as it gets, perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on this, about maybe to Tom's last point about you didn't again quite say this, but now is the time for boldness, for radical steps, because we've all had a chance to reappraise why we do what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. I think we just got to be intentional with our decisions. And actually, it's a really interesting point Deborah made about we've just got used to our officers being okay. Actually, and it's a bit like if you play sport with someone who's way better than you, you get better at sport. And if you play with people that are the same or worse, you don't get better, you probably get worse. I think it's the same with an office. If you go to the same office, and it's fine, like actually our office is fine, but I think if I put around one of Interaction's offices, I'll be like, oh. So I think that how do you push yourself and maybe be more intentional in benchmarking?
Pushing yourself, being intentional, being more radical, and having something which is going to prompt business. This is to your territory, our interaction duo.
No, Tom's right. You've got to put yourself out there. And businesses that are really bothered about their workplace are bothered about their employees, and that runs through the culture, and employees sense that. And what's a business without its employees? It's nothing.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a very apposite moment to conclude this. To you each, at sort of both parts of this this major, innovative, almost literally groundbreaking project. Wish you all the best. I'd love to see the pics, fully assuming, of course, it will go ahead all but exactly as planned. Love to see the pics. Quite frankly, love to have an invitation to an opening party, but that's a bit egregious. All the best with it. It'll be fascinating, Tom, to see how your business continues to develop. With that new extraordinary environment which has been created. And likewise, of course, to see how interaction, its time coming to the extent it has in recent times, burgeoning in the years to come. So thank you to our business surgery sponsors today, Interaction and to Varn. And thanks personally to Deborah, Lucy and Tom. And thank you for those watching this either live or on YouTube subsequently. Look out for our next surgery next Wednesday with Burgess Salmon about IP and protecting what you do. Thank you, of course, for your support for Bristol Life. And from Bristol Life itself, please, good luck to us all in the coming months. This has been a Media Clash production, and this has been our latest Bristol Life Business Surgery. Bristol together, always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.